All right. You see that?
Yes.
All right.
One person it looks like so far.
All right. Up to you. Any last minute clarifications, changes?
I don't have any. I think I'm good.
Great. You saw the note about Miranda.
Yes, I
Okay.
did. Thing.
I don't want to scare anyone who may be seeing me for the first time on this webinar. So,
Oh, hi. Um,
Well, that's really strange. Came
for
through
some reason,
me. So that's actually good for Dave as well because I forwarded the link to you,
here,
Miranda,
hmm,
and
I can
so
change it on my
it
end.
must change there you go. That's so funny, Miranda. I didn't even know it was you.
I know. I was like, oh, Dave
okay,
just joined
great.
with another device. Hi, Miranda.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Are you feeling okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, good.
So, David, I believe in the chat,
Mhm.
everyone, we can see what people put in the chats, but I don't think the people that are listed as attendees can see what each other put in the chat. So, just a heads up on that one that we'll be able to see it with if they put questions, but they can't see each other's questions and comments.
Got
I
it.
think is what Gina told me the setting was, if I understood correctly.
That sounds right. Thanks for those of you who have joined us. I think we'll give it another, well, we still are not to the top of the hour. We'll probably give it a minute or two past the hour before we get started.
Trying to see if I might have to have Jan do it since she set it up.
To do what?
Send an in. Oh, there's Roger. Let me move Roger. There we go.
All right, those of you who are on, we'll give it another minute for kind of stragglers, then we'll respect your time and get started in about a minute.
See if Gina can resend the link to Dana. And hi, Roger.
Hey, Roger.
Yeah, on our end, we received two different invites and there's two different links. One was one, so I just tried the first invite and it said Zoom, so I clicked it and that's how I got in. But I know that on my calendar, I have a second invite on there.
I may have put a hold on yours and it assigned a Zoom link. So,
I got the hold too, but there's another one that says Innovation Insights, join Mac PC. Oh, it's got the same Zoom link. Never mind. Disregard.
okay.
Rebecca, did you mean to raise your hand or
I was concerned that it looked different today. I wasn't sure if you could hear me or see me or what. So that's all. I wanted to make sure if I made noise that I wasn't interrupting.
no, you're good.
Martha, did you reach out to Dana?
Yeah, I just asked Gina to.
Right. And Miranda, if you're able to reach out to Dave.
I'll text Dana too real fast.
Thank you. Yeah, we can see you, Roger. That's a little better.
Interesting. Laurel just sent me a message and said she's trying to join, but it's not letting her. So I don't know if anyone else is having that problem.
Dave, I think we.
Engen, did you? Oh, I see David is.
Yeah. Dave,
Sorry about the technical problems, everyone. Engen.
Good afternoon. Do you hear me?
yes.
Okay, I'm connected. I'm not as regular on the screen, and I don't know what's the difference in between the links, but I see you and hear you.
You see well, there are four of us. There's
Yes.
five of us now. Great. Thanks, Engin.
I'm gonna do this because I think I know all these people. So we're just gonna move everybody into the same place. And see if that solves one of our problems.
Hi, John.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I think the way we had this set up.
Yeah, there still appear to be a couple more on the attendee side. But I assume
haven't heard from Dana, but I think I texted her and Gina's going to reach out to her.
Mhm. All right. Let's see. Martha, if you want to kick it off, I think we can get going. honor
Right.
the people who've
Yeah.
joined.
So thanks everyone for taking some time today to hang out with us on what is, I know, a busy time of year always for everyone. But we're excited to have some conversations today about innovation and connecting all of you together on this topic as we continue to focus on this as part of the work that the Commission is doing. So the purpose of today really is to learn from some real world innovation decisions made by a couple of Commission authorized schools, both ambitious in their transformations and difficult choices in service of students. While our two previous January convenings that most of you have been at, we've been working to highlight ways that you can use your autonomy to accelerate and make bold moves in the name of autonomy and student success. This is really continuing those conversations and highlighting our commitment to commissioning for school quality and innovation in that spirit. So today we are going to continue that conversation through our innovative insight briefs, which is one of three of the ways that the Commission is working in this space. The exchange, which is the rebranding that we're really excited about of the January convening that we've done the last 2 years and we'll be doing again this January. The innovative insight briefs, which we're going to talk more about here in just a couple minutes, and the innovation exchanges, which will be rolling out at the exchange in January, and we're really excited about that. We'll talk more about those two at the end of today's conversation and give you some previews of those, the exchange and the innovation exchanges. But right now, we're going to shift and talk about the briefs. So what are innovation insight briefs? They're intended to be in-depth examinations of particular situations, decisions, events, or processes that are designed to elevate both successes and challenges that you are all seeing and experiencing in your schools. Through all of this, it is intended to help each other, all of you, your boards, policymakers, other sponsors, etc., all the stakeholders in this space, to really learn from one another and promote ideas that could be successful outside of each individual LEA. And so these documents help tell those stories and foster that continuous improvement and mutual support of one another. So without further ado, and like David said, we really want to respect everyone's time today and make sure you get to hear what you all came to hear. I'm going to turn it over to David Hartman with Venn Education. For those of you that have not met him, he's one of our contractors that we use for a lot of different things. And he's going to facilitate today's conversation with Roger, Dana, Miranda, and Dave, who all thank you for your willingness to share your stories today. So David, I'll turn it over to you. And I think I am going to troubleshoot where Dana is, but while you get started.
That sounds good. Thanks, Martha. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces and names, and some new ones as well. And I'm excited today to, highlight two of the briefs that we've created that we kind of engaged at the end of the spring and into the summer with three schools to talk on two different issues and moves that they made over the course of the last year and a half or 2 years. What we'd like to cover today, we're just walking through our welcome and intros. We will spend time, and actually, because of the people who are present right now, I think we'll start with momentum, and we will hear about a change that they made. We'll hear from board chair and former school leader to hear about what they went through and how they made their determination. And then we'll hear from Roger and Dana about some significant changes to the organizations that they engaged in the last year or so. As Martha said, we'll take a little bit of time to wrap up and talk about next steps and things. But before we get started, I just want to reinforce what Martha was talking about. So she mentioned autonomy, and a lot of this talk about innovation with the commission. We try to figure out, like how do we define autonomy or innovation and things like that. And one of the places that we've landed, not sure that this is the perfect way to look on it, is that the commission has a lot of responsibilities, as do charter schools that are identified in law. Um, and there's a lot of what you all do that is not identified in law. And so, really, one of the ways to really kind of think about where innovation can be present, you can do a little bit of nuance work within the law and things, but really to focus on the things that are absent or silent or not as clearly articulated. And the commission's responsibilities, right, kind of end with law. And so to really encourage folks to think about their autonomies and make determinations regarding things that are bold, that are outside of the law, that really are a lot about how you operate and things. And so these two profiles kind of explore some of that territory, things that are under your control, that are not directly under the control of the commission. And so the commission has an appetite to explore this territory, and will continue to have these conversations going into January, the exchange, and a little bit of what we'll talk about later on. We're going to jump ahead and talk about Momentum Academy. So we have Miranda Ming and Dave Simmons who have joined us today. Miranda, I think, per our email earlier, would you like to talk about why you're not on camera?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I think I know or have been in contact with most people on the call, but just struggling with a little bit of allergies and sinuses at the moment. So I'm going to remain off camera.
All right. Thanks a lot. And Dave, thanks for joining us as well.
No problem. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome.
Thank you. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Momentum Academy, K-8 network in St. Louis, roughly 600 students. You can see kind of what they're based in. And so one of the things that really came to the attention of the commission was their work to, I'm losing it because I have the windows over it. They had talked about underperformance and under-enrollment in one of their particular campuses. And they went through a process, and the leadership team and the board made a difficult decision to not enroll students at that campus in order to protect the quality and long-term sustainability across the organization. You know, people get wed to the existing schools and campuses and people, and it's a very hard decision to make your own decision about those things. And so we're really going to spend some time kind of exploring that. And so Miranda or Dave, I mean, either of you can kind of start here. But what made the challenges at Brevoy Park impossible to ignore? I mean, what was the data? What were you hearing? What were you facing?
Brandon,
All
you want
right,
to me to?
since you were quiet, I was
No.
assuming you wanted me to. Do you want to?
Yeah.
We should have probably talked about this ahead of time, but
No, you're fine. You can go ahead, but either one of us can go. But from my perspective, I wanted you to start because I think it really started with you and the data that you were bringing to the board, and plus the conversations with Antoinette. So I think from a standpoint, I think you should start, and then kind of I can go from there as to what happened.
yeah, well, thank you. Great to see you. David and I haven't seen one another, and as you guys know, CEO or ED and board chair, you have lots of conversations together. So it's wonderful to see you again. And I think where I would start is we all know, especially for you guys who are St. Louis and Kansas City natives, how passionate and connected folks are to their neighborhoods and their neighborhood schools, and how difficult it can be when you start having conversations about those campuses no longer being there. And so our board engaged in a 5-year strategic plan process when I was hired. And a part of that process was hearing from the community, parents, students, as well as the staff and leadership in the school, what their experience is like day to day in each campus. And the strategic plan provided survey data, focus group data, as well as performance data. And through that, it was very clear to the board, as well as my leadership team at the time, that there were some major challenges that one of our campuses was experiencing that was considerably different from the other campuses. So we began to, a few years of findings and pilots to see if there was something that we could do to revive and to restore stability at the campus. And, at some point, it really became clear to us that the new mission that we had developed through our strategic plan process, that we were falling short despite of all of our interventions and innovations. And we needed to really make a stand, because this was about kids, and it was about delivering on the promise that we were making to our families, which was that we would offer a safe and loving environment where all kids had the potential, the opportunity to reach their potential, and we just were not offering that.
Right. And you mentioned being wed to the schools and whatnot. Gravois Park was a school that the board had opened a while back, and they did it because the need was there for a school in that neighborhood, is what we believed. And so when we did our strategic plan, it was not to, we got to close the school. It was more along the lines of, are we delivering what we say we're going to deliver? And looking at each one of the neighborhoods, because each one of the neighborhoods our schools are in are unique. And so it was a long process, because it wasn't just one thing, and it wasn't just one time or any particular piece of data. It was a combination of it all, and the board did not want to make that decision in haste. And so, yeah, there was a lot of analysis, there was a lot of trying to do things to improve and all that stuff. It took a while for us to do some of that before we had to make the decision that we did.
And Miranda, you mentioned making some over the course of a couple of years. I'm not sure exactly how many years, I don't recall, making some adjustments relative to some of the data and kind of feedback that you were getting from families, the community as well. What were some of the adjustments that you made before you made the decision to not enroll at the campus?
We had heard from our families, as well as the staff in the building, that additional resources were needed because of the population that this campus was serving. So we did some reorganization and restructured so that we could offer specialists and social workers and different staff a differentiated approach at this campus. That was kind of year one. Year two, we began to make some changes in the grade structure. And then year three, after those were unsuccessful, we decided that we actually need to look at no longer enrolling the campus. So it was a 3-year process of different iterations.
Dave, was it as straightforward as that?
So from a board's perspective, we, managing, we don't want to, close a school or do anything like that. So there was a lot of data, a lot of things that we asked Miranda to do, along with Antoinette, to let us know, where they thought we should do it, how to get it done, from a, just nuts and bolts, the money needed to get it done, because this school definitely took more money to run, with all of the things Miranda just mentioned. So it wasn't straightforward from the board's perspective, because then, we want to do these things. Can we do these things, or how are we going to get these things done? So yeah, it took a while to get that, and there was a lot of talk to the board, and we would ask Miranda and Antoinette to give us numbers, and okay, let's implement it, and then we would look at the data and see, did it work? Okay, it didn't. How are we going to do that again? So the board would meet every month, more often if necessary, and tried to go through this and make sure that we were doing everything that we possibly could to try to make Gravois Park work.
So when you were looking at that data and you were talking about the expenses,
Mhm.
so from just an expenditure standpoint, what did you see when you compared this campus against the other three?
This campus, I believe, it was one of the campuses that, given the enrollment and everything that we were putting into it, was not. The other campuses were holding this campus up financially because they were more enrolled, they were more established, and so we would see that Gravois Park was taking more money than the other schools, even though it had less students. But that's what we were seeing in the expenses, and that's why we had to monitor them carefully. We had very good financials, but um, we didn't want that to change because of what we were doing. So, in other words, we weren't going to go bankrupt just to try to make this work because that wouldn't be fair to the other school. So, we kept it tight. We kept a good eye on the finances to make sure that we could do this and still remain in a advantageous financial position um, going forward with our other three campuses.
So communication is always a challenge with anything like this. Was your community, and specifically this campus, their community, aware that you were making changes that might lead to non-enrollment and essentially the closure of that campus eventually?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think I'll take this one first and then pass
Yeah.
off. I think that David and I both believe fully in transparency. And so by being transparent from the beginning, our community believes in our mission statement. We recite it at the beginning of every meeting. We recite it at our convenings. And so when we started talking with our community about the data showing and the experiences of the people who are in this building is showing that we're actually falling short on our promise. And we start having those conversations from the beginning. Then we elicited their feedback and what are the things that we think that could be changed. And then we began to pilot those things and we began to collect data on if those pilots were working. And so by bringing the community along and being transparent about this is definitely about money and operations, but it's also about kids and families and staff experience. It really helped people to feel like they were aware of what was happening and they were part of the process. So that's part of the change management. I think David also kind of downplayed how much work this was for the board. They were meeting weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, monthly. It was a huge lift to be transparent, to be invested in what the community felt, and to make a change that was really in the best service of the organizations and our stability.
Yeah, that's right, Dave.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Transparency is, one of the things that Miranda and I, between each other and, with everybody around us about what's going on. There's no reason to not be that way. And, the board, yeah, we met a lot because the board, there was 9 people on the board at the time. They all had no problem doing any of this because they believed in momentum in the school and they put in the extra work necessary. So yeah, and many discussions with stakeholders and whatnot about what's going on and getting their feedback. I mean, it took not only from the board's perspective, but on top of all the board meetings, Miranda and I would go around and talk, to stakeholders as well.
But it's not as easy as you make that. I mean, you're telling people really bad news, and
Mhm.
essentially like you're making a decision against their decision, right? And so, like, what was some of the feedback that you faced? I mean, I would assume that everybody didn't pat you on the back and say, "Attaboy."
I don't think, no, I don't think so. But they also didn't, it also wasn't the other polar opposite of that, which is why are you doing this and all that stuff. That's why the transparency work. You bring them along and you tell them what's going on and you tell them what you're seeing and you tell them what you're doing. Um, and all of that is available to them. And we're happy to talk about it and stuff like that. So, I'm sure they weren't happy about the ultimate final decision, but I think they understood after all of the things we tried to do to take some of their feedback into consideration, and implement it and things like that before we made that decision. So I think that, keeping people involved, they might not like the ultimate decision, but if this just made and nothing was happening and there was no transparency, I think it would have been worse.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
When you went through the transition and the decision was made, how were you able to accommodate some of the community?
Go ahead,
By
Miranda.
that, yeah, by that second year, we were really aware of one, the school community, the families were really invested in their school and they really wanted to see it last and survive. And they also understood the rationale based on their survey data, based on their focus groups data. There were certain things that would have needed to be provided or would have needed to be different in the community that we just did not have the resources to do in order for it to be the type of environment that would thrive that we would want to send our children to. So I think the main piece of making the transition something that people could get behind is making sure that you had a plan for the things that they voiced and were concerned about. They were really concerned about seats and placements for the kids at the campus and if they would have a place in other momentum campuses. And our staff were also worried that they would no longer have jobs or that we would no longer have a space or place for them. And so in year two of the process, we really ran our financials. And the reason why David's mentioning Antoinette is because our COO, as well as our operations team, were a huge part of this process in terms of renovations that needed to happen or restructures that needed to happen so that we could accommodate the staff and the students in one of our other campuses. And by the conclusion of the transition, over 80% of our families and 90% of our staff who were invited to return were able to be placed in one of our other campuses. Those were the two main things that they cared about. And we spoke about that often. We were transparent. We had one-on-one conversations. We went to people's homes. We really made sure that we were transparent in a way that we would want people to be transparent with us if there was a change a chance that we would be losing our jobs or that our kids would no longer have their school. And so I think just by leaning in that way prevented us having a mass exodus or prevented us having mass protests at board meetings and things of that nature. We literally had zero families show up to our board meetings, zero staff show up to our board meetings to express concern because of some of those touch points that we had on an individual basis.
Yeah, thank you. And that is not easy. Yeah, to do that and facilitate that effectively. Because, when making a difficult decision, you always want to like just keep it as close as possible until, you need to, share the bad news. So admire how you've done that. I kind of have two last questions before we transition to the second interview. And so we don't have a lot of time for this, but either of you or both of you, as you look back, what would you have put in place earlier, maybe intervened sooner, wished you would have been able to see through in a way that might have changed the outcome? Is there anything like that?
I'll take this one, Dave.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Dave and I haven't talked in a few months because we were so this required a lot of work on our part. But I've had the pleasure of remaining on and being able to work alongside Liz Valerio, the new executive director. And I would say the one change, Dave, that I wonder if you feel the same way is I get to see the stability of an organization now that we downsized and we have a campus that is no longer enrolled. I saw three buildings start the year completely staffed. I saw stability in a way that I haven't seen it before. I've seen us be able to lean into our community partners and our social workers differently. And so the quality of education and the quality of experiences that Liz and her team has been able to provide the families at Momentum is something that I wish David and I could have seen sooner. So I think my push would have been that maybe we do the pilots shorter and faster, and that we have maybe advocated for this change sooner because the schools are thriving and stable in a way that I don't think David and I got a chance to experience.
Thanks. Um, so you talked about a little bit at the start of the year with being fully staffed. Are there other indicators that this has been the right or wrong decision that have started to emerge? And either you know helped you decide that this was the right thing to do, or maybe even made you second guess some things.
I would say the survey data from our school teams and what Liz and her leadership has been able to do in terms of staff satisfaction, what we're seeing in terms of school culture, what we're seeing in terms of discipline, and then our academic growth data. We haven't seen numbers in terms of our performance data, assessment completion, our teachers been able to lean into their lesson internalization because they are fully staffed and not being pulled or being pulled to cover or trying to lean into areas where they just were not resourced to do. Another thing that this has enabled Liz and the team to do at Momentum is we now have an overflow of staff in a couple of buildings. And so by having, an extra PE teacher, you're able to offer some additional electives. You're able to offer your teachers who are in your core and tested areas additional planning time. It really has been a game changer in terms of her leadership and not only the school culture side, but some of the gains that we're seeing in our math quiz and early data in terms of growth. So I really think that it's in terms of stabilization from an operations side. We also have a very healthy fund balance, but just in terms of the experience that our staff and our students have been able to have, it's been wonderful to witness because it has been really challenging to see people crying and see the emotions that came with this sacrifice. But it's well worth it when you're able to improve upon the everyday experiences of your staff and your families.
Great. Thank you for that. Dave, anything to add there?
Nothing to add. It's good to hear. I'm glad Miranda was able to see that stuff after I left.
Yeah, and having worked, on this project with the two of you to kind of get this together, the two things that really, come through on this is that commitment to your community and the focus on being able to serve children and students most effectively. And it just was, kind of a dogged pursuit of those being the focus, which is not an easy thing to do in this type of situation, right? You're cutting corners, you're trying to come up with creative solutions. But just want to thank the two of you for giving your time and being willing to share some of your story here. On the commission's website, there is a summary of this that you can download and read. Same with the next one that we're going to go to. But thank you, Dave and Miranda.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll take a little time to hear from Dana and Roger. And Dana, I'm glad you were able to join us. It's good to see you again. So just to kind of level set for those of you who are not as aware with these two schools, both in Kansas City, Brookside, a pre-K 8, about 700 students. You can see what their focus is there. KIPP KC, pre-K 12, and focus on academic excellence. Brookside really kind of worked on, and Roger, you'll be able to explain this a little bit more. reviewing the organization, but it was really about kind of where the school had plateaued, right? And kind of looking at the data that caused some time for reflection. And, determined that there were some organizational changes that needed to be put in place. KIPP did a similar process and was looking at data. Dana was in a situation in which she was coming in sooner, or she was new to the organization. Was it May or June that you started before this happened? You can fill in the gap in a second. But where both of them reorganized their entire organization, KIPP KC did it right at this time last year, and Brookside announced that changes were going to be made and then implemented those changes over the course of the spring, but really coming into this school year. But both did pretty profound changes as veteran schools and really kind of challenging the status quo of the organizations. But thank you both for taking the time and being willing to answer questions here. So where I'd like to start, Roger, I'll start with you. What was the moment that you knew that, organizational or staffing changes needed to occur?
It was really at the start of the going into 24-25, we had realized we needed to make a change. But it was starting to, become a concern right before COVID. As Brookside has grown so much over the last 16 years since I've been here, we just kept adding on top of different positions. You had directors, supervising directors, and we were an elementary school, and we became an elementary and a middle school. And really the board, where it started, the board said, listen, it's not sustainable for you to continue to be in the building working 65 hours a week. So we need a reset. So we started to have conversations about what that looked like. Then COVID happened. So then COVID, it was taking care of needs, families, this and that. And as we came back, so part of that is the board said it's not sustainable. So we had to move me to a district office with a team. They talked about succession planning. And as I moved out of the building, I started to notice that academic performance had started to go down. So it went from 32% proficiency on average to 19% proficiency with me leaving the building. And so we knew that at the end of 23-24, so going into 24-25, I spoke with our administration and said, hey, I need to see a drastic change. As school leaders, this is what we need to see. We need to meet goals. It needs to stop. And then, I met with my cabinet, which is my team that supports me if something happens to me. They're my direct reports, and they agreed. But then when I really started to do one-on-one meetings, we do stay conversations with our staff November and in March. It reassured that a change had to be made. So after talking with the board, after talking with staff, it was announced, that we'd be making this organizational change. And I told the whole staff in December, knowing that the spring was going to be a little messy. But I wanted to be transparent. Miranda talked about transparency. We knew it was going to be messy. But we announced it going into winter break. And then when we came back, we re-announced it and we launched the plan about we were moving to one administrator, one principal instead of two. And then our two principals were not asked to return to Brookside. And that was a big shift and change. And then from there, it was managing and resetting. So yeah, that's how we got there. So it answers your question and probably a couple others. Sorry.
No, and that's helpful. And one thing that I'll add, and then we'll go to Dana, is that I remember from the process is that everybody had to apply for positions coming into this school year, right? So it wasn't just the shifts in the leadership structure, right? Everybody went through a resorting process.
Yeah, as they re-interviewed, and it wasn't every position, but the majority of the positions were, and then we also shifted titles at that time. So instead of directors, our org chart was a little bit more clean with this. It also aligned our curriculum, and it aligned our expectations and accountability, pre-K through 8, instead of having different accountability or different measures, our curriculum for, pre-K to 4 versus 5 to 8. So it really just worked on aligning what we were doing and trying to really focus on academics for as we started moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you. Dana, as I mentioned before, you weren't the veteran leader that Roger was in his school. You came in. Tell us about when you started and when you made a determination. What was the information that really motivated this change for you?
I'm on two devices. Apologies. So yeah, so not, I was not a veteran to KIPP Kansas City, but I've worked at KIPP Texas for about 9, 10 years. And so veteran with, what our brand stands for and what we're committed to, which is academic excellence and joyful yet rigorous learning experiences. So I started in June virtually and was on the ground in July. And for the first few months, I've just like any other executive director, led listening tours. I met with the regional leaders, met with teachers, met with paraprofessionals, office staff, you name it, held chat and choose with staff, but also looked at data. What is the data telling me? And is the data aligned to what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing? By September, I could tell that there needed to be a change. And so I met with the board at least 3 or more times to discuss, any possibilities in making the adjustments org-wide from, the classroom teacher all the way up to regional staff. And then I also scheduled a meeting with actually the commission and our CEO for KIPP Foundation. And we discussed what the current reality was and what we wanted or envisioned for KIPP Kansas City, and also what the community needed, because I also met with parents. And from that, we decided collectively that there needed to be a reorg. We came up with Reimagine as our theme for the year. We called the plan KIPP Reimagine at the time. And then we closed school down. Before that, I met with the regional team about 3 times to, share what was happening, share my thoughts, ask them for recommendations. They could all share input on what they believed the new structure would be, what they believed we needed to focus in on. And then once we got clear about what we wanted to focus on and what the new org structure would be, I closed school down. And then I held a 2-day professional development session for all staff, and including teachers. And then I rolled out KIPP Reimagined, what that meant as far as restructuring, and then what that meant as far as what we wanted to see in the classrooms on a daily basis, and what we were going to sweat for the rest of the year. And then that was October. By December, we fully fleshed out the restructuring. We hired new staff. Some staff were not invited back, not maybe like 3. But we gave all staff the opportunity to make decisions on what they felt was best for their career and also what was best for KIPP. So with that model, some staff applied for things that even allowed them to have promotions, and they're thriving. We've seen so many gains since we've made this adjustment. I think we jumped about 33 points, I believe. And so what we did last year as far as restructuring worked. And then this past spring, we spent some time tweaking the model, readjusting and reorging again based off of the needs that we saw on the most recent data. I do have that file that I'm going to drop in the chat box for you all to see at your leisure as well. And then
KIPP Reimagined.
Yeah, it's the revised KIPP Reimagined. So now it's called Everyday Excellence, but yes, it's like version 2 of the KIPP Reimagined plan. But in there, you'll also see how I launched the restructure. So you actually see the slides. You see my framing around that. So that you kind of see like what we talked about, which was the purpose in building better tomorrows for students and ensuring that every child was walking away prepared to enter and graduate from college.
Thanks, Dana. And thanks for sharing that resource. There's a question, Roger, if you can share the new org chart that you revised. And so later on, whether that's a link you can drop in the chat or it can follow up afterward, you can send it to me or Martha, and we can make sure to redistribute it to the group. But you both, I know, faced some opposition. Again, not an attaboy like we were talking about with momentum, And so when was the most acute feedback that you received that was negative in resistance to the plan? Dana, if I remember, yours was pretty immediate in some cases. So was that limited to a handful of people, or was it, broad?
So immediately after the presentation, actually I got hugs, which I was like, wow, this is different. I had a line of teachers and some regional staff like sharing, this is what we needed. I'm so happy this is happening. When December came around and contracts were being distributed, that's when the green-eyed monster came out. There were anonymous letters. Some of you probably got them. There were, some statements, we got some crazy text messages, from, we're not getting paid enough. We want more pay, in which we actually increased staff pay, but the caveat was you need to have your certification. That was the only way you could receive that pay, which we all want certified staff to teach children. We made a promise to parents. It was immediate once those contracts started going out, where we got some pretty negative comments and statements about the turnaround or the turnover in employees, which we expected that, we needed it. And then also around staff pay. And again, we rolled out a compensation guide, and it was heavy on staff certification.
Mm-hmm. And how long did that last? I mean, of course, there's always going to be some resistance that persists, but when it was that focused at that point, was it a matter of weeks or months that you had to persist through that?
It was a matter of months. I would say it died down maybe around March.
Okay.
It surfaced back up this year in September. Change is hard. And we had a lot of staff that had been there for many years. And so I think that, the fact that we made such a drastic change in the middle of the year, while it was good for kids, for the adults, it was rough. So it's died down from where it was back in December, January, but we still feel some of the elements of the hurt from that.
Great. Thanks, Dana. Roger, how about for you? Like, when did the resistance emerge the most loud?
So for us, doing the right thing and doing the easy thing doesn't always align as a school leader, and very seldom does it align. So we asked, do we want to tell our staff ahead of time that this change is going to happen? The easy thing would have been just we made the change in May and June, and they came back to something new. But that wasn't right. So we started it. So really all of spring last year was very uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable because the leaders school leaders that were not returning and staff that were not returning, they knew throughout the spring, and the staff knew. So there's some talking behind the scene and some gossiping behind the scene about this and that. But I told you, it was confirmed when I had my stay conversations in November. Well, then when I had stay conversations in March, there was excitement. There was positivity. They were ready to move and do that. So really the whole spring was uncomfortable, all the way through May. June with summer school was even more uncomfortable because those administrators had to still stay on and do summer school. And when you're trying to plan, through April, May, and June for 25, 26, and they don't have a seat at the table, it was very uncomfortable. But really, from May into June, it started, you noticed it a little bit more. But when we started the year, we felt good because we communicated, we were transparent, and we were upfront. And when we started the year, we were worried about this hard reset and this new team. and it's been very effective to this point. So it's worked. And I think, if tough decisions are, what we school leaders have to make. And if you can always justify and explain why those decisions are made, I think, there's support there.
Well, so now going into this school year, are there indicators that this has been the right thing, or is there data that shows maybe you're rethinking it?
So as I talked about, proficiency going from 32% to 19%, we were worried about when does that stop and start to go the other way? So it kind of motivated our staff a little bit, knowing that the change was here from my perspective. And then we kind of got involved with the goal setting and rerouting of what was happening in the classrooms. And our proficiency is at 21%. So where we were on that decline, we thought it was going to possibly, go down one more year and then flatten and then start to go back up. But we were already moving the other direction going into this year. So the positive momentum, we just carried it on. There hasn't, I wouldn't say pushback, but it's just, it's not communicating, it's effectively communicating. And with this change and these expectations and the accountability that we've put in place, it's consistent. And there's been some pushback. Well, I think some of our staff were used to outlasting administration on asking them to do some different things, kind of like kids do in the classroom. They'll test you and try to outlast you. And then when they realized, wait a second, we're not budging on this, it's there. And, we didn't lose a lot of staff from last year going into this year. Even when we made the announcement, very few of our staff said, hey, we're leaving because of this. We might see some of that now, but it's not because of the change in administration, right? And the change of our structure. It's more because we're actually holding the adults accountable. You know what I mean? Instead of going through the motions, no, we've asked you to do these steps. You need to do these steps. And I think they had gotten comfortable with either outlasting or going, hey, nobody's going to check on this. I'm going to do it my way anyway. I'll tell you I'm doing one thing, but we'll do something the other way. And we might see some changes there. But at the end of the day, it's what's best for kids. Because if we have a plan, we're executing that plan, everybody needs to be on board when we're trying to move forward with this. And you are going to lose. And it doesn't mean if we lose staff that they're bad staff. It just means that they're not right for the direction that Brookside Charter School wants to go and has determined that they're going to go. So we wish them the best and, we can move on. So.
Thanks, Roger. Dana, I just want to go back to that data point that you just kind of slipped in before about the change in your outcomes. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I think we're like plus 30 points. I'll pull it up just so I'm clear because you're recording. So to be clear on the numbers. So I'll definitely pull that up. But this was in APR and in performance. I think in performance we jumped like 32 points total. APR, I think it was 21 points. So that felt good, within, honestly, when we think about it, was probably more like 4 months that we made those moves, because once we launched KIPP Reimagined in January, we had I think it was 10 to 15 snow days. But I want to go back to what Roger shared around accountability and follow-up. We're not saying we're perfect. This change has been hard, and we made a promise to students and families. And one of the things that we have been sweating is things like lesson internalization, right? Assessing students for mastery of learning. And with that, yes, we are checking lesson plans. Yes, we are visiting classrooms, not just visiting, we're observing and we're giving real-time feedback because our kids deserve it. And we have this motto, leave a classroom better than you found it. And so we have had some turnover this year with letters from teachers saying, I don't want to plan lessons. I don't believe I should internalize lessons. Why are people coming in my classroom? And to Roger's point, we're unapologetic about doing what's right for kids and reaching the bar of achievement that we know our students have the capacity and the ability to reach. And so we're remaining steadfast around that.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate that. I wish we could go on and on with all four of you with this, but again, really appreciate, and it's clear, that focus on both campuses, both Brookside and KIPP, really focused on students and focused on the outcomes. we're going to have to transition here. And actually, I just want to bring in Martha. As you've kind of heard all of this, are there any things that stick with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the thing, these two particular case studies really highlight that oftentimes I think we hear the word innovation and we think something is exciting and new and pretty and it's gonna be this cool new thing, but sometimes it really is just doing the really hard thing that no one else wants to do, and that's the innovation, is kind of making that shift that no one has ever done before or no one has ever thought about before. And it's not always pretty, and sometimes it's really just is about making those really hard decisions, is what I heard from all three of the schools today.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things to that point about it not being pretty and it being tough, I know in some of the many conversations that we all had with generating these briefs is hearing about, yeah, kind of the heartache and the moments of, second guessing yourself, and needing to double down and persist through it all. And so while, everybody represents themselves really, really well here. It is not without wish. And it's commendable to stay focused and see the results that are emerging in all three instances. So thanks everybody for sharing with that. And we're going to transition to this to talk a little bit about things, but before Martha talks about the exchange, I have it as Innovation Exchange, but it's the exchange, the 29th and 30th. I do want to kind of open up the door to all of you. So the commission is continuing to do these briefs and highlight different innovative moves. They can be small, they can be large. If you're curious to learn more, we're happy to share and kind of talk a little bit more about what we'd like to profile, but really do want to kind of reinforce this kind of out of the box thinking, and difficult changes that people have engaged in. And sometimes they don't merit the success that they do, right? We want to learn from the things that people have tried and what they've learned through trying something that maybe didn't work, and merit, a 30-point change, right, over 4 months. It doesn't have to be, showered with praise so much as, was there learning that's useful for the rest of the community to share? Martha, if you want to talk a little bit about the exchange and what's coming up.
Sure, absolutely. So this is similar to what we've done the last 2 years. It will be back in Kansas City again this year. And apologies, the dates on the slide are actually incorrect. It's the 26th and 27th. We'll start Monday afternoon, late in the day. And then similar to how we've done it the last 2 years, do a full day ending at around 3 o'clock on Tuesday. And we're really excited. We've heard from all of you that one of the things that you find most valuable in this time is the time you get to spend with the people who are doing the same job as you, who you don't get to spend enough time with. So this year is really structured around what we're calling innovation exchanges, where you will be spending the majority of the time with that group of people. Executive directors and school leaders will be in a room together, board chairs will be in a room together, and then finance and operations people will be in a room together for a lot of the time, and really working through wrestling all of these ideas together. And then it's really a launching pad for continuing those conversations over the spring, together with some facilitated online sessions. So we're really excited about where this is going and what we've got planned. And in addition to all of that, we're also Monday evening at dinner, we're going to celebrate 10 years of the commission. So the commission has officially been a sponsor in Missouri for 10 years. So we've got some exciting things planned for that dinner celebration that we're hoping you can all join us for as well. And I just, again, want to echo, if you have any ideas from your school or that you've heard about from one of your colleagues that they're doing that you think we should highlight and do a little more research on and share with others, please let us know, and we will add you to our list for additional briefs. And you should be getting the formal invitation for the exchange either later today or first thing tomorrow morning in your emails with all of the details and information.
Thanks, Martha. And I just want to extend a thanks again to everybody who participated and the rest of you who listened and asked the great questions. Dana and Roger, thank you for responding in the chat. I did download that org chart, so if there's a follow-up, if anybody didn't get to download that, I'll do that, and we can distribute the reimagined, that is no longer called reimagined, afterward. So thank you, everybody, for your time, and we look forward to this. We don't have a formal survey to follow up, but please, if you have thoughts about the value or potential changes that you think in terms of this being useful for folks, we try to do this over lunch times so that people can kind of do this when works for them. But please, share your feedback with Martha. We always want to make sure that this is serving a need rather than just having a fun conversation. So thanks, everybody. I look forward to seeing many or all of you at the end of January at the exchange and continuing this work. So have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.